Canada is loaded up front, decent on defense, and a little weak in goal. They won the little teaser to the Olympics in the Four Nations tournament last year, but this is a different ballgame. International ice, international rules, it'll look a little bit different, but Canada will definitely be a favorite to medal, if not win it all. Up the middle, we know that McDavid and McKinnon will center the top two lines, easily the most dynamic two forwards in the game today, no real debate about where I put them. I hummed and hawed over putting Crosby on best buddy's wing like he was at Four Nations, but I think he's best used driving his own line. He's a monster in the face-off dot, and possession will be important on the international ice. Nobody is matching that center depth. Braden Point is guaranteed a spot due to being named to the preliminary rosters. He can play center or on the right wing. Point led all Canadians in goals last year with 42 and had 46 the year before. On this team, I think he would hold the most value as a right winger to McKinnon. That rounds out the players who were named to the preliminary roster. The next spot I want to look at is that final center spot. I'd want to focus on someone with an adept defensive game, but they have to be able to keep up with the caliber of play from Canada's wingers to not be a black hole offensively. I wouldn't be upset if the Canadian brass went with Anthony Cirelli here, but I personally see this spot belonging to Nick Suzuki. 89 points last year while being voted 13th for the Selke. I think we can count on this guy to hold down a crazy dangerous 4C spot. The most dynamic forward that Canada has besides McDavid and McKinnon is Mitch Marner. People might clown on him thinking that he's soft when it's best on best, but Canada will need him to pull his weight. He checks all the boxes, fast, smart, can shoot, pass, and defensively responsible. I think he slots in as the first line right wing next to McDavid. He set up the OT winner to McDavid at Four Nations, so they have at least a tiny bit of chemistry. Speaking of chemistry, I think that even though these guys are the best in the world, they still have their little on-ice quirks and tendencies that take some time getting used to. It's a short tournament. I think as long as he's healthy and has hit his stride like we expect him to, that Zach Hyman deserves a spot on this team and would fit in perfectly on McDavid's left wing. Hyman is a dog, and he has several seasons under his belt playing with both McDavid and Marner, so I think it makes sense to slot him in here, even if he isn't necessarily the most dynamic left wing that Canada can offer. What he may lack in over-the-top superstar skill, he makes up for in grit and tenacity. With a similar train of thought, that is why I have slotted Brandon Hagel at left wing next to McKinnon and Point. McKinnon most definitely appreciates the way that Hagel plays the game. He quietly put up a 90-point campaign last year with the Lightning. Like Hyman, he's also got the grit and tenacity that you want to have alongside your superstar center. And he also plays on a line with Point in Tampa, so they clearly won't have any issues regarding chemistry. Alongside Crosby, I've penciled in Sam Reinhart. I would have no problem with anyone wanting him higher up in the lineup, but being beside Crosby, you can't really call it a traditional third line with a straight face. Reinhart obviously has the complete package, 96 goals over the last 2 seasons, and finished second in Selke voting last year. He also has a tendency to show up big time in big games. It will be nice to cheer for him when he makes a big play in a big game that isn't against the Oilers. To round out the third line, I would like to see Macklin Celebrini take this spot. People have started making comparisons that he looks like Sid, or like a mini Sid out there, which I won't comment further on at this time, but he is pretty electric. He would have to move over to the left wing instead of playing center, but there's no doubt that he or anyone would have any issue with that. And lastly, for Suzuki's wingers, I have slotted in Jarvis on the left and Bedard on the right. Both uber dynamic players that have no business being on the fourth line of any team unless it's this one. I think Bedard could move up and down the lineup or maybe even sit out some games if they need to slot in someone with a more defensively sound game, but I think you give him a leash to start the tournament and see where he takes you. When he gets to play with some players of this caliber, he might be able to elevate his game to what we were all selfishly expecting him as an 18-year-old when he broke into the league. As for Jarvis, he is a Swiss Army knife with speed, a shot, and he's a defensive darling who absolutely deserves a spot on this roster. On defense, it's definitely not as star-studded up front, but I think they will be able to hold their own. The only defenseman guaranteed a spot is Makar, who will obviously be slotting in as the top right D. Don't think this pick needs any defending. In keeping with the theme of chemistry, I, and everyone else, is slotting Makar next to his D partner in Colorado, Devon Toews. Chemistry and trust between these two is already maxed out. We should know exactly what to expect each time these two are deployed together. To me, the next obvious choice is Josh Morrissey on the left side. He probably runs PP2, and he will be able to handle the speed that this tournament will be played at both ends of the ice. My next pick is actually another left shot defenseman whose game I wasn't super familiar with until Four Nations, and it's Thomas Harley. But holy smokes, this kid can skate. I like his overall offensive game and ability to move the puck. I think the next pick is a little bit boring, but you can't go wrong with being a boring, minute-munching defenseman. I think Parayko will slot in next to Morrissey to round out the second pair. And for the last pair, I think it goes to Travis Sanheim. He can play both sides, which I think is an asset in case someone goes down on the left. Then he can switch over. But obviously, Hockey Canada likes his game over some flashier or even higher event players with the nod at Four Nations, so I think it's a pretty safe pick for the last D slot. Goaltending is where things really thin out for Canada. It's no surprise that I would put Jordan Binnington as the de facto #1 going into the tournament based on the precedent he set earlier in the year. Regular season Binnington is clearly struggling, but this man can get to another level in big games, and that is what this tournament will be. But I do think his starting role could have some competitions from the other guys I picked. Logan Thompson was a huge snub at last year's tournament. He leads the league in goals saved above expected this year with over 9, and last year he was 7th in the league with over 20. Last year he was 31, 6, and 6 with a goals against average under 2.5 and a .910 save percentage. And for the final spot, I have Mackenzie Blackwood edging out guys like Darcy Kemper and the currently injured Aiden Hill. Playing behind Colorado has given this man new life. Plus, if he does have to play, he would have some chemistry with Taves, Makar, and McKinnon, which could avoid miscommunications and whatever. For Canada's extra forwards, I went with St. Louis Blues legend Robert Thomas and Mark Stone, if he's not still injured. These are pretty safe players, and they could slot in basically anywhere. Canada's forward group is so versatile that I'm sure anyone could realistically play any forward position and be fairly okay. For Canada's extra defense, I thought really hard about it, and I feel comfortable taking Matthew Schaefer and Shea Theodore. I think Theodore is a pseudo-lock for this team based on his previous body of work, but Matthew Schaefer has really surprised me with his overall game and specifically his skating. In a good way, he sometimes looks like a fourth forward out there on the island. I think he could bring more of a dynamic punch without the liabilities that some other prominent Canadian defensemen might have. And by all means, he seems like the most likable hockey player in Canada. I would be super excited to cheer for this kid again. Some guys that just missed the cut for me on forward were Wyatt Johnston and Sam Bennett. If this was another Four Nations, I think there's more of a case for Bennett, but this is international hockey, and for Johnston, he just doesn't excite me like some of the other Canadian forwards do. Other considerations were Scheifele, Tavares, Cirelli, and Fantilli. Some guys that just missed the cut for me on defense were Evan Bouchard, Mackenzie Weegar, and Drew Doughty. If Makar wasn't on the team, I think Bouchard makes it as the #1 offensive guy. But with Makar, Morrissey and Harley are more than adequate to run PP2, but don't come with the defensive gaffes that sometimes follow Bouchard in Edmonton. At his peak, he is on another level, but I just don't think this is the tournament for him right now. I would love to see Weegar in here too, but I just don't see him taking a spot away from Parayko, Sanheim, or Theodore, who all made it over him at Four Nations. As for Doughty, I see this tournament being a little too fast for him to keep up with, but if any of these cuts do actually make it, I think Doughty is probably the most likely to make me wrong. Thanks for watching. Please go easy on me in the comments, and take care.